always the sound of bugs in Virginia.
Crickets.
Do you remember what we're doing?
The subject?
Yeah. But I'm gonna start with, since that's later on that you met them, I'm gonna start with you first.
Yes.
Cameras rolling.
Lights. Oh,
You don't have to smile the whole time.
huh? I know.
Okay, anything you wanna talk about first?
No, I'm speechless.
Okay, remember, and also, I had said, I told you, like, what I'll do is I'll, instead of asking you yes or no questions, I'll ask you to say something, like, tell me about so-and-so. Instead of saying where were you born, I'll say tell me about where you were born. You can just say I was born in blah, 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 blah. You got what I'm saying? So that you're telling me a story as if I'm not here. Because
I'll try.
we'll probably edit me out. So, and I may ask you to do stuff over and over again,
Okay.
but not too much. But also too, we're gonna take all kinds of stuff out of here. I mean, we can edit, so anything, you can do anything you want, you can sneeze, the phone rings, you can get up and answer it, whatever you need to do. Okay?
Okay.
Okay.
You can answer the phone. How about that?
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so let's start, you can tell us some stuff, so you can tell me about your friends. Who are your friends now?
Who are my friends now?
Yeah, but don't answer all my questions.
Well, Jerry is one, lives over in Fairfax, and I don't have too many now since I'm not bowling. My art group are friendly friends.
Okay, so just so you get used to doing that, when I say who are your friends, say, oh, I have a few friends.
Okay.
Okay, so who are your friends?
Well, I have a few, not many.
But don't answer my question. You need to say it to me as if you've never, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I have a few friends, but since I'm not bowling, I don't see those friends too often. We do go to the senior movie once a month and have lunch at the mall, so that's sort of fun. Get a free cinnamon bun and a cup of coffee and a little half pint of orange juice. And my art friends, I just see them on art day. I don't usually do anything extra with them, and except for Tuesday nights when I go out to West Springfield to my art class. And that's about it. I don't know my neighbors. Most of them are new, except John next door, who's 90, and I see him once in a while. But other than that, I just keep to myself, watch TV and paint, and going to DC once in a while to see Lynn. Thank goodness 1 out of 5 lives close enough that I can see them once in a while.
Okay, tell me about your first experience bowling. The first time I ever bowled.
The first time I ever bowled, that was a long, long time ago. I can hardly remember. When we were young, we didn't go to bowling alleys. One thing, we didn't have the money, and another thing, in the olden days, that wasn't a place to go to hang out or even to bowl, because the people that were there were not people that you wanted to be around. So it's changed a lot since then. And I had a good time bowling, and had a few 200 games, which was exciting. The ball just went right down there and curved right in and got them all. And
Tell us about the first time.
I don't really remember the first time that I bowled. I'm sure it wasn't very good, and I can't remember. In Akron, I don't know if it was in Akron that I bowled for the first time. I just don't remember. It was too long ago.
So tell us about where you were born.
I was born in Thornbury, Ontario, Canada, and
No?
huh?
You looking at me?
No, I'm looking at the candle.
Look at me.
I was born in Thornbury, Ontario, Canada, in 1925, and I was born in the home that my mother grew up in, and shortly after that, my father was already in Akron, and when I was like 3 months old, I came to the USA with my mother and my brother, my older brother, and my sister, and moved to Akron, Ohio, where my father was working in the Goodrich rubber factory, and that's where I grew up. We moved around quite a bit and finally settled on Lexington Avenue. When I was like in third grade, we bought a house on Lexington Avenue for about $2,800, and it's just sold recently for I don't know, maybe 80,000. I'm not sure, but that was our home that we remember growing up in. And
Tell me about your siblings.
my brother was the oldest. He just passed away last summer. He was named Jack, and he being the only boy, he really got to sort of rule the roost. He got to sleep in a small bedroom, and the four girls, myself and my younger twin sisters and my older sister, we shared the bigger bedroom, which had 2 double beds in it and just enough room to walk between the beds, and one dresser, small dresser, and no closet. And the dresser was plenty big because we didn't have that many clothes like the kids have nowadays. I mean, we had like 1 pair of shoes, and I don't know, it was just, that's the way it was then, and we were happy. And
Tell me about Aunt Henrietta.
and Aunt Henrietta, I don't know really, I can't remember what, she was 4 years older than I was. She and my brother Jack were 18 months apart, so Aunt Henrietta and I sort of hung out, and then when the twins were born 4 years later, they took all of the attention and I sort of was in the background, and I was shy, and I had this big mop of hair with like 3 layers of curls, and people would look at me and talk about my hair and my big blue eyes, and I didn't like all of that attention at all. But I guess I got used to it. And then when I was like 7 years old, I went to visit my Aunt Stella, who lived just 2 or 3 streets from us, and she took me to the barber and had all of my hair cut off and shingled up the back, and my mother was not very happy about that at all. But since then, I got rid of the locks, and now I can do what I want with it. I just jump in the shower and wash it and fluff it up with my fingers, and that's it. I never used to like curly hair, and it never looked combed. All my friends had this pretty straight hair that always looked just great, and I always had this fluffy hair, and now I can appreciate it because all I have to do is get it cut once in a while and run my fingers through it, and that's it. So
Start with saying Aunt Jo or Joanne and Janine are the twins.
My twin sisters, 4 years younger than me, Joanne and Janine, they got a lot of the attention. They had to dress, even though we didn't have much money, they dressed exactly alike down to the underwear and the socks, and they still, when you look at them in a picture, they still dress sort of alike, and their hair is cut the same, and they used to play tricks, I think, on some of their boyfriends because they were so identical that it was hard really to tell them apart.
Tell me about their political persuasion.
And the only difference in them now that I can see is Joanne's a Democrat and Janine is a Republican, and they're very strong in their ideas, and they just don't talk about politics when they get together because between them and their husbands, who follow in each one's footsteps, they can get into big arguments. So they just try not to talk about politics when they're together. They live like a half hour apart, and so they see each other once in a while. Our family home was just sold. It was sort of sad for everybody because we moved into it when I was in 3rd grade, and a young couple bought it with a couple of little children, and he's just back from the war. So they were happy to sell it to somebody like that. So that neighborhood is changing, I'm sure, like all the neighborhoods, like this neighborhood in Springfield. I'm one of the old timers now, and my neighbor next door is John Drennan, and he's been there in his house. He was an original owner. That my house is, I think it was like 7 years old when I moved into it. David was a year old, and so this is more like home than any of our homes because I guess we've lived here longer than any place else. So I like to keep it for when the kids come. It's home to them, hopefully. So
tell me about your dad and your dad's family.
I don't know a whole lot about my dad's family. He had 2 sisters.
Tell me your dad's name.
My dad's name was Harold Frederick Dickinson. He, I guess he was born in, I don't know if he was born in Toronto or in Thornbury. I really don't know for sure, but he had 2 sisters younger than him who died in their younger years, and both of his parents died when he was, I suppose, 18. So he was alone after that, and his father was the mayor of Thornbury for a while, and I really don't know too much about the background. If my brother was here, he probably could tell you more, because he looked into a lot of that history. My mother was born in Thornbury, I'm sure, or Perry Sound.
First, tell me how your dad came to the States and how he met your mom.
I don't know how he met my mother, but they lived in the same town, and my mother had 2 sisters and 3 brothers, and I'm sure those 3 girls were the belles of Thornbury, and so I don't know how they met or where they met, but they married, and they moved to Toronto. Toronto is where my brother was born, and I think first my father had money from his parents, and he used to run the store up at Point of Barrel. There was a grocery store that was on Double Island, and he used to run the store up there, and he was so kind and gave people the groceries. I mean, he never would collect money, and so he lost everything up there. And I think that's when they moved to Toronto, and
To Toronto or to Akron?
no, to Toronto, and my brother was born there, and then he had a cousin in Akron, Ohio, whose husband was worked at Goodrich Tire and Rubber Company, and they sponsored my father and mother and brother to come to Akron and help them a lot to settle in and make a living in Akron, and so that's where, and I was 3 months old.
And what about Aunt Henrietta?
Well, I was 3 months old then. There was Uncle Jack, my brother, and Aunt Henrietta, and then I had just been born, and so I was 3 months old, and I asked my brother not long ago how we came, and he thinks we came by train. So my mother came to this new country with 2 children and a
3.
young baby.
Oh yeah. Oh, sorry.
And so Aunt Elsie and Uncle Harry were lifesavers, and they really looked out for us and helped us get settled and all. And we used to go over and visit them a lot. And my mother used to work for her. I mean, help her clean house or wash windows or whatever. And the bigger ones were in school, so I would tag along and had a lot of fun. She had 2 Pekingese doggies that were fun to be around, and she was real jolly and bubbly and everything. Uncle Harry, he sat in a chair and smoked his pipe and sort of sniffled all the time, and he didn't say much, but he was also behind helping. At Christmas, they really made our Christmas. They'd come over late Christmas Eve and with a basket full of packages for us, and so they.
Tell me about. You told me once about a special day at.
With
Aunt
Aunt Elsie, every now and then she'd take one. I don't know that she ever took my brother, but one year she would take my sister, and another year she would take me. And for spring break we would go downtown, and she would buy us a whole spring Easter outfit: coat, dress, shoes, hat if we wanted a hat. And then we'd go to a Chinese restaurant and have lunch, which we never got to do anything like that. And I can remember it was just a long flight of steps to get up to right near O'Neill's, the department store, to have lunch. I can't even remember. I can't imagine at that age I even would like Chinese food, and I can't remember what we ate, but we had a whole day with her. And every now and then the truck from the department store would pull up, and she'd have sent my mother a couple of house dresses. She'd bought them and just had them sent to her. So they helped us out a lot. They're both gone. They had a daughter named Marjorie. I don't know that I was named after her. I don't know, but she was a lot older than we were. So I've lost track. You know, if she's still around, I don't know.
Tell me about, told me about, something that I remember you told me about when you would sleep in the same bed with her.
Oh, when I'd stay over there, I'd usually slept with her. Now, she must have had an extra bedroom, but she would ask me to sleep with her, and she had a sun porch out at the back of her house on the second floor. And so she was sort of a little bit chubby and tubby, and would sort of move back and forth when she walked. And so I would sleep with her, and I would just sort of roll down next to her through the night. And anyway, they took really good care of us, so they really helped my mother and father a lot.
Tell me about tell me about your mom. Start with her name. And
my mother's name was Edith Elizabeth Laura Dickinson. I think that's all of them. And
she was born.
She was born in
She was born Oldfield, right?
Oldfield, yeah, Oldfield,
So tell me
Dickinson. Edith.
Start with my mother.
My mother's name was Edith Elizabeth Laura Oldfield Dickinson, and her father was had a fishing business. He had a fishing tug, and in the winter they would spend time in Thornbury, where they would mend all their nets, and then in the spring they would go to Point of Barrow up in the Georgian Bay. They had islands called doubled islands. It was 2 islands right beside each other, and there was a path between the two. They were connected by a good-sized path, and so they would spend the summers up there, and the men would fish. And I don't know what the young women would do. They would probably help clean the house, and anyway, that it's still all up there. And I don't know. I think somebody else has the double island, but one of my twin sisters has an island further out, closer to the out waters. She has a place up there and goes up every summer. My Aunt Lizzie had a hotel. She was my grandfather's sister. She had the hotel and the post office, and it was always fun to go up there and visit. And the hotel is still there. I don't know who owns it now, but it's all different than it used to be.
Tell me about the house you were born in and the circumstances.
The house that I was born in is a big, beautiful 2-story brick home right in Thornbury, and that's where the family lived. And I guess there must be 8 bedrooms at least, maybe more.
Did it belong to your dad? The family house?
No, it was my mother's. It was my mother's family home, and there was like a room with a bay window, and that's where I was born, right there in that house. And nowadays it doesn't belong to anybody in the family. It's been a bed and breakfast and a restaurant, and right now I'm not sure what it is. I haven't been up there for a long time.
Tell me why you were born in the house.
Why? Let's see. I don't know why I was born in the house. People just didn't go to hospitals anymore. So anyway, I was born in that house, and I have pictures of it before and now, and it's a beautiful, beautiful place.
Tell me about what's your earliest childhood memory?
My earliest childhood memory, let me think. Well, I can remember Aunt Elsie, and she had 2 little Pekingese puppies that they weren't playful or anything. And I can remember when the twins were born. And I remember my mother's neighbor next door had a sort of a winding sidewalk, and along each side of the sidewalk were portulaca flowers lining this big, long, curved sidewalk. And every fall, I would go over there with an envelope, just a letter envelope, and pick off the little black seeds, pods. They were full of little, like, pepper seeds. And I'd fill up that envelope with all these seeds, which probably took me a couple of hours. And I don't know whatever happened to those seeds, but it kept me busy and out of any other kind of trouble, which I was never in trouble anyway. But, and I used to go over there quite often. I suppose my mother was busy with the twins. I'd spend a lot of time. It was the Mrs. Sherry, and I used to help her clean her stove that was all greasy and everything, and it was sort of fun to sort of scrape some of that, help her. I thought I was helping. I was probably in her way, but I thought I was helping. One time I went over there, and her husband and boys had been fishing, and they came home with a great big turtle that they had down in their basement. And I remember looking at that, but I didn't want to go all the way down those steps because I didn't know what that turtle might do. But she had a pretty house. I remember the house and the garden and everything, but who knows whatever happened to all of those little black seeds.
Tell me what you remember about grade school.
Let me see, grade school. It was a long walk, and my sister, she I had to go with her, and she'd see that I got in my room all right when I was in first grade, maybe kindergarten. And I loved cats, and every time I saw a cat, I figured it didn't have a home. And so this one day, we were partway to school. It was winter and cold, and I saw this kitten. So I made my sister go all the way back home with this kitten because I just thought it was lost. And so then when we got back to school, we were both late, and I cried and told her she had to come in my room with me first, which made her extra late, but she did it. And her name was Henrietta, my sister, and she died, I suppose, 7 years ago. She had breast cancer, and so she had 3 boys, and they all lived in Indianapolis. That's where, after she married, she moved to Indianapolis. So, and then my brother died this past summer, and he had 4 boys. And one thing that was unique about my family, I'm the only one that had girls, and I'm the only one that had girls and a boy. The rest all had boys. So one of the twins has 4 boys, and one had 3 boys, and my brother had 4 boys. So
Tell me about...
I feel honored to have David.
You don't have to sit up, just as I'm here. Tell me about, as I say, tell me about what's something somebody would be surprised to know about you?
Something about me that nobody knows.
Not that nobody knows, but what people that just met you, what would they be surprised, do you think, to find out about you?
I have $1 million stashed away someplace. No. I don't know.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
Tell me about high school.
High school, well, for junior high, we grew up without a car. And, my mother baked bread, but we didn't have a garden or anything, so we always had to, I remember my father coming home with 2 bags of groceries. They were about down around his knees by the time he got to the house, and it was a long walk to the grocery store. And so in grade school, we came home for lunch. It was a good walk. It took like 20 minutes at least. And we'd come home for lunch and then go back to school and come home afterwards. Junior high and high school, we had walks almost an hour, I suppose, 45 minutes to an hour. Spring, fall, winter, weather, snow, whatever. We always had to walk. No school buses, and it was a long, long walk.
Tell me about any high school activities? Members of clubs or dances or?
I don't remember any clubs. They didn't have what they have nowadays, but I remember maybe it was 6th grade in the grade school, or maybe 5th grade, we were supposed to do the minuet, and my partner was Bobby Baker, and he was not paying attention while we were learning this dance. And then when the time came, we did it for some kind of a program or something. He kept saying, "What comes next? What comes next? What comes next?" And I was not happy with Bobby Baker. But we used to go out in the summer at recess and play baseball. I can't remember if the boys and the girls were separate at recess. I think they were. And that school is still there. The name was Andrew Jackson. It was a pretty new school, I guess, when we started. But all my nephews that live around there went to the same grade school.
Tell me about when you first started having an interest in painting.
Let's see, I think in the painting that I've gotten back into, I think maybe in high school or junior high, I took just like one semester. And but then when I was overseas in Morocco, one of the Marines' wives taught some painting, so I started a few painting lessons over there. But I've really gotten into it now back here in Springfield. I go out to West Springfield High School, the adult education, and I've got a great teacher and a great class. We're all friends and enjoy each other's company. And every year we have a show at the Government Center, which is that big government center that they call the Taj Mahal. It's so big and outrageous. And we have a show out there once a year in the fall. And one year I was lucky. I got second place for my barn that I painted where Amy lived up in Vermont. I think it was Vermont. And I even had taken that picture that I used to do the painting, so I was sort of proud of that picture and the painting. Another year I got an honorable mention with Amy's, one of her paintings, which were 2 girls coming up out of a pool that had just dove in and came up out of the pool. And so
Okay.
since then, I haven't won anything. So I don't know if I'm getting worse or other people are just getting better. But it's still fun to go, and we're like family too. There's only about 6 of us in the class every Tuesday night. That's the worst part, getting out in the winter in the evening.
Okay, let's move. I want to move to something else.
Is that not?
Give me a list. Give me a list starting with Canada, of every place that you've lived in the order.
In the order of where I've lived: Canada, Akron, Ohio. Let me see. Morocco. I don't know if these are in order. Let's see. Fort Knox, Kentucky, Georgia, Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, Fort Ord, California, Monterey. Actually, Monterey is where we lived. Let's see, Morocco 2 different times, Beirut, Saudi Arabia for 8 years. So if anyone can stay there 8 years, they should win a prize, but I didn't. But living is a little bit different there.
What? You missed them.
I missed some places. Let me see, where else did we live? I said Fort Leavenworth.
Japan.
Oh yes, I was in Japan. I forgot.
Jordan.
Jordan and Japan. Japan was years and years ago.
Fort Benning.
Karen was. I was going to say Karen was born when we were in Japan, but she was born at Fort Knox. Lynn was born in Akron, Ohio, and Karen was born at Fort Knox. Gail was born at Fort Benning, Georgia. David was born in Beirut, Lebanon, and Amy was born at Fort Belvoir. So they're all international kids.
Tell us, name all your grandchildren.
Oh my goodness, I have, I thought it was 9 grandchildren, but David corrected me and said 10. I've got Karen's girls, Pam, Laura, Meredith, and Katie. Lynn's Tommy, and not Margaret, Lizzo and Meg, and Gail's David. She has a David also, and Christine and Lauren, and
Great grandchildren.
grandchildren. Laura has 3 now. Austin, Jordan, and what's the little one's name? Anyway, Cameron. And so she has the boy and 2 little girls.
Okay.
So that's the family is growing.
What okay, what's let's talk about did you have any deaf friends when you were a kid? When's your first
No.
time tell me the first time you had exposure to a deaf person?
Probably the first time that I can remember is when I met my in-laws for the first time.
And tell me about that.
I don't remember the first time. All I remember is I really didn't know they were deaf, but a friend of mine in the neighborhood who worked with my husband had sort of mentioned it to me. And I can't remember the first time I met them, but my mother-in-law read lips, and so I could communicate with her. I never did really learn the sign language,
Can you do you show us any signs that you know?
I don't remember
You
any.
don't know any signs?
No,
No?
I don't. Some of my children maybe do. I know Gail probably does, and David.
So who, tell me, who told you that, how did you find out that they were deaf? Your parents and your future parents-in-law?
By the kid in the neighborhood that worked with my boyfriend then,
S-
and he sort of mentioned it. But
He sort of mentioned it, or?
Yeah. I don't know how he knew, if he, I don't know, but that's how I had an inkling.
So one of my sisters told me that you didn't find out until the engagement party, or right before the engagement party. That somebody told Daddy that he better tell you that his parents were deaf.
I don't remember that.
You don't remember that?
Mm-mm.
That's a story that's going
Mm-mm.
around. So tell me your first meeting with Grandma and Grandpa Thompson.
You know, I don't remember the first meeting. I really don't. I don't know if it was at their house or I really don't remember when I first met them. I know when we decided to get married, it was during the war, and my husband was anxious to get married, and so then we probably went over there too. And I know my mother was concerned about them being deaf and if it would affect my children. And my mother-in-law, I believe she had scarlet fever or something that caused her deafness. And I don't know about my father-in-law, but my kids are all healthy and strong, so.
What?
Hmm?
What?
I said
I'm
my
kidding,
children
I'm
are
kidding.
all healthy and strong.
So tell me about what were the first things you noticed about them and the deaf world? What are the things that surprised you? Your first memories?
Well, I remember one thing, how they woke up in the morning. They had an alarm clock that was somehow attached to magazines above their head, and when the alarm went off, the magazines would fall, and that would wake them up. I don't know exactly how that all was done, but I remember that. But otherwise, they had a normal home, and there probably was no radio there, maybe just a small one. But of course, there was no TV anyway. But my father-in-law worked in Goodyear, and they, of course, didn't have a car, so he walked to work every day. And I don't know how. My mother-in-law must have taken the bus if she wanted to go downtown, or I don't know how they got along. How they. I don't remember any grocery stores right around there where they lived, but they had 3 boys. The middle boy drowned, and there was not a pool, but I don't know what it was. It was some kind of a pond where the kids could just go and swim, and so I think my husband and his brother were there, and somehow he drowned, and my husband came home and told his mother to hurry and come quick. So that's all I know about that. They were from Minnesota, my mother-in-law. My father-in-law was from Salt Lake City, Salt Lake City, Utah. And I don't know I really don't know much about his family.
Tell me what did they do for a living?
Who?
Grandma and Grandpa.
Grandpa worked at Goodyear, and Grandma, she worked during the war. She worked at Goodyear too. During the war, then otherwise she didn't work. I don't think.
What did they do?
After her husband died, she went to I think it was Iowa, to the school for the deaf, and she was like a house mother there for quite a few years, which she seemed to enjoy. But during the war, she worked at Goodyear in doing what, I don't know.
How did you fit into the deaf family?
I think they liked me. Fine, you know. His mother could read lips, so I learned to speak slowly and to pronounce my words right, and she could understand what I was saying all the time, and then she would translate to. It's like a foreign language, I guess. She would translate. They had a lot of deaf friends. There were a lot of friends that came to Akron probably for jobs after they went to the college here, Gallaudet, and they ended up settling in Akron, where probably the jobs were at the rubber factories. And so there was a regular deaf club in Akron, so they had a lot of friends. And so a lot of the children of the deaf got to be friends too. So.
Tell me about. Do you remember your engagement party?
No.
You don't.
No. I didn't remember an engagement party.
Gail told me that nobody, that friend of Daddy's said that because he hadn't told you that his parents were deaf, and said you better tell her that your parents are deaf, because he kept it a big secret. You don't remember that?
I don't remember an engagement party, David. I remember the wedding and reception. And I don't know how Gail would. Did you say? No. We got married on Washington's birthday, and it was cold and wintry at St. Paul's Church in Akron. And then we had a reception back at the house afterwards. But I don't know how Gail would know. She wasn't even around.
Who paid for the wedding?
Who paid for the wedding? We did. I mean, my parents probably did. It wasn't. We had pictures. We had a photographer that sort of did informal pictures like they do now. He was probably one of the first ones that did that, and we had a nice wedding cake, and the house was full of people because I was working at Goodrich. I was working at Goodrich. I worked on a comptometer. People probably don't even know what that is nowadays, but a lot of my friends from work came to the wedding, and.
Tell me, did you ever feel like an outsider in Daddy's family?
No. Mm-mm. I didn't feel like an outsider, no.
How do you think coming from a deaf family affected Daddy?
He probably had a lot of more responsibility. Otherwise, I don't know. I'm sure he had more responsibility, but.
How did it affect who he is?
I don't know. Maybe that's his problem. I don't know. he maybe can keep things to himself more. I don't know. I mean, his well, the one brother died and then drowned, and then he had a brother, Bill, who was completely opposite from him, and Bill used to tell a lot of fibs. You know, he was a really nice guy, but he couldn't really believe all the time what he. So I don't know if it affected him one way.
I heard stories that Bill used to, well, they must have had a telephone, right? Because Bill used to answer the telephone, pretend that he was his mom.
I don't know where you're hearing all those stories, because I had never heard that. I had never heard that. Bill used to get into trouble, minor trouble, more than my husband did.
What do you know about Gallaudet?
I don't know too much about Gallaudet. I've seen it. I went there once with. They were having their 100th anniversary or something, I think, and Grandma was here, and we went. In fact, that's where she met an old friend from school. He was there also, and she ended up marrying him. And I don't know. It's the only deaf college in the United States. But other than that, I don't know. Grandpa used to play football for Gallaudet, and but other than that, I don't know.
Tell me about how do you think? Do you think Grandma, Grandpa had opportunities because they were deaf that they wouldn't have had? I mean, what's their education like versus the education of their brothers and sisters?
I don't know if they had any more opportunities. I think they had to work for whatever they got. Grandpa went to college, and then I don't know what he was doing at Goodyear, but he didn't have any special privileges, I don't think.
Did Aunt Stella and not Aunt Stella, did Aunt Mamie and did they go to college?
I don't know. I think they were teachers, weren't they? So maybe they did.
Because those girls all grew up on a farm, right, in Minnesota? Can you tell me what you know about Grandma and her?
And Aunt Mamie?
Just Grandma Thompson and her growing up and how she ended up doing.
I don't know a lot about it, David, or anybody who might be listening. Oh my goodness. They were teachers, her sisters, I believe, but.
What did Grandma study?
I don't know.
Latin.
Grandma did?
Yeah, that's what I remember.
I don't know.
And Grandpa studied. Oh, I don't remember, but Grandpa Gilbert was a chemist.
Yeah. They had a lot of friends like I said before, a lot of them, I think, settled in Akron, and they had a club. They had a deaf club where they'd go and have meetings, and so they had a lot of friends, and so they all had children, so all those children were friends too. But it was a lot of responsibility probably for the children.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, just to help out with the daily whatever.
So what if any prejudice that you have experienced a relationship to Grandma and Grandpa Thompson?
No, what do you mean by that?
Does anybody,
Hmm?
do you ever feel like, did anybody in your family?
That felt funny?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
Wow.
No. No, and she'd come, she came right to this house, and, you know, we'd take her shopping, and she'd sew. I think she made some slip covers, she was a sewer, she could sew. But, she'd fit right in, always wanting to do something like grandmas always want to do to help out. She was tiny. She always wore high heels. She was tiny. Amy sort of reminds me of Grandma, her features and all.
We have 5 minutes left.
But,
Mm.
well, just in this tape. What do you think, these are like very thinking questions, what do you think was one of the biggest pivotal moments in your life?
Oh my goodness, David. Having you? Well, you know, we went through the World War II and Vietnam, and so you were always worried about your husband. And when that letter came, you know, you didn't know if he was dead, or it was a telegram I think they sent, or what. And he was wounded, so you think, oh, thank God, you know. But he was wounded. But that, you know, that was a worry. I mean, they were over there fighting, but it wasn't easy for the families back home either. Just like now. And Vietnam was the same as now. Not everybody. And World War II, everybody, they all went. But nowadays is like Vietnam was, that, you know, life goes on here, and it just bothers the ones who have somebody over there that makes it difficult. So,
So Daddy was wounded in Korea.
yeah.
Okay, stop for a minute.
Okay.
I need to think for a sec.
Well, David, why didn't you ask me this last night so I could think about it? The funniest thing? Can you think of the funniest thing that ever happened to me? The most exciting was my 80th birthday party, I guess, and the most surprising, because I had no idea what was going on. So that was a really big shock and fun and surprising. So, is that good enough?
What's how many more minutes do we have?
Less than 1.
Okay, let's when there's nothing to do. Tell us a joke.
I can't think of one right off my head.
Is that your wedding photo over there now, by the phone?
No, that's my grandma and grandpa.
Yeah.
That's her mom and dad.
Oh.
That's what I thought we'd do, is get some photos of some of the things.
Oh.
People that she's talking about, and that's the house where she was born.
Oh. That phone's in the way. That's the house I was born in, the old picture, and then the new one beside it.
That's it on the left. And the map of that is Double Island and Winnebarrow, Thornbury.
And that's a painting I painted up there.
The women with the burkas?
Yeah.
Wow.
And then Those are some of Amy's photographs, the black and whites.